My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith and I host the Scars and Guitars podcast. This is my conversation with Phil Collin. He's the guitarist in a little old band called Def Leppard. It has just been announced that the band are touring Australia in November, and that is the reason for the conversation, so let me read out some tour dates quickly. On Friday the 2nd of November, they're playing in Perth. Sunday the 4th, they're playing in Adelaide. Tuesday the 6th, they are playing in Brizzy. Thursday the 8th, they're playing in Melbourne. And finally, Saturday the 10th, the band are playing in Sydney. We talk about a bunch of things, including the tour, so let's hear what Phil has to say. Here we go. Mate, we're here to talk about your tour of Australia, so I'll let you give me a bit of an introduction to things. I mean, I've just read the press blurb about it all, but it's very exciting what you guys are doing and when you're coming down and who you're coming down with.
Yeah, absolutely. We haven't been for a while. We're actually going to come down and do the whole Hysteria album in its entirety. Plus, we've just released our old catalogue, the whole lot, on digital. So you can get it on Spotify, iTunes, Apple Music, whatever, and Amazon, wherever you get your stuff from. And it's amazing. We've never toured the Hysteria album in its entirety. We done it in Vegas, and we done a festival in France once where we done the whole album, but that's the only time. So we've never actually toured it. So the band continues to get better. We just done a gig in the Albert Hall just about a month ago, and it was probably one of the best shows we've ever done. So, you know, the playing, the singing, everything just keeps getting better. And I like that, you know, that's what's inspiring. It's great to be on stage with someone and go, wow, I can't believe we're playing this. It sounds like we're with a record, you know. So that's everyone keeps kind of pushing that forward, and that doesn't happen with a lot of bands. They kind of start slipping over the years. So it's
yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's the opposite of atrophy. You know, we just keep pushing it. It's amazing. So I'm really proud of what we do, and I'm really excited to see, you know, how you guys are going to kind of handle it and actually, you know, respond to it really. So that's going to be great.
Well, look, I'm a covers musician, and I've got to tell you, I've played a few Def Leppard tracks over the years, but none get a better response than Hysteria from your tracks, and it's also up there with AC/DC in terms of the response it gets, which, as you know, being Australian, AC/DC are our rock and roll gods, if you like. So whenever we play Hysteria, mate, it gets such a wonderful response. So which track do you think gets the biggest pop or the biggest response when you perform it from the album?
The most popular song is Pour Some Sugar on Me. You know, it's got a life of its own. You know, the album came out, didn't do great, and then that was like the fourth single in America, and it changed everything. And then, you know, the album went to number one, and, you know, sold 12 or 13 million copies in the US. And then at the end, me and Steve Clark, they said, well, someone's got to go to Australia and do some promo. And everyone's like, oh, I'm so tired. So me and Steve went. And I took my mum. That was one of the conditions. It was like, only if I can bring my mum, she can see, you know, my cousins and all that stuff. They were just outside Sydney. And we had the best time ever. It was really cool. And then the album went to number one after that. So it worked, whatever we did. And, you know, we obviously have a really a close soft spot for Oz and, you know, and New Zealand. Actually, I've got a place in New Zealand that I haven't seen for 3 years.
There you go.
Still got a place down there. So, you know, there's a real connection. It's more than just a colonial thing. It's there's a cultural thing that's very similar to what we do. Even though I've lived in the States for a good part of 30 years, it's you know, there's still that connection when you get out there. That's undeniable, actually. So yeah, I love it. Got a lot of friends out there, and it's just going to be a blast. I'm actually really looking forward to it. And love the weather and everything, even when it gets really stupid hot.
Yeah, I'm in Queensland, so it does get bloody stupid hot here, let me tell you. It's either dry and hot or bloody humid and hot. It's never really in between.
I know.
So you mentioned somebody there, Steve Clark. I'd like to just have a chat about him, if that's okay, because he had his birthday. Well,
sure.
It was his birthday on the 23rd of April. So, I mean, he's now been gone a quarter of a century, I think. It was certainly approaching a quarter of a century. What are your thoughts on Steve these days? And I mean, I know I don't mean to come across as a cliche, but do you think he's with the band in spirit?
Yeah, I do. Absolutely. He was my best friend. I think about him every single day. You know, just amazing. You know, we just had such a deep connection. Not just musically, just everything. You know, it's just really, really cool. And miss him like terrible still, you know.
Yeah.
My son was born, Rory was born like just a year before he died. So that's how I kind of gauge how long he's been gone. But yeah, I think about him every single day, and he is with the band still. It's like we play all these songs, we, you know, put him up on the screen, and so he's there.
Nice,
he's
yeah.
absolutely there. He's a very solid part of the whole thing. And you know, we never replaced him. We just got Vivian in the band as well. So it's like we just got another soul in there as well with us. So and Viv's great, and it's just all cool. And if Steve was around right now, he'd come back, and there'd be three of us, and it'd be great. So yeah, and it's as sad and as terrible as what happened. You know, I have really great memories of Steve. You know, and I get to play the songs that, you know, a lot of songs he wrote and songs I wrote with him and stuff. So it's that's kind of soothing as well. That's pretty cool, you know.
Yeah, for sure. And you mentioned your other six-string partner there in Vivian Campbell. So probably my favourite album from you guys. I'm probably in the extreme minority here, but I love Slang, and I love the sounds you introduced.
Oh, great! No, me too.
Great.
We all do. Thank you. No, we all do, and it was so different, and you know, we really needed to do something against the grain. We'd done 3 albums that were kind of in the same vein, you know, Pyromania, Hysteria, and Adrenalize. And Adrenalize, in a lot of people's opinion, was a little too sugar-coated, candified, you know. It's kind of a and we needed to do something a little darker and a different approach, and Slang was the perfect thing, you know. It's no, I love that album, really do. And you know, outside of Hysteria, it's I think one of the most important albums. It was
awesome.
Absolutely essential for us, you know.
I'm so glad you feel that way, because it's a lot of the time I've listened to Ozzy slag off The Ultimate Sin a few times, and that's my favourite album from him. And it's always really interesting to talk to artists about an album that maybe wasn't received that well by the media or by the fans or what have you, but it's a very important album to an individual. Because I think 2 of your strongest tracks, if you don't mind me saying, are on that album, being Truth and also Work It Out. So do you think those 2 songs
thanks.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think you wrote Truth, if I'm not mistaken. So do you think that...
Yeah, me and Joe. Yeah.
Yeah, well, will that be played when you come down?
Probably not, you know, because we only have a certain amount of time, and we have to play, you know, you have to do your photographs and your, you know, Rock of Ages and what have you. So they unfortunately get moved. So I know we're promoting the catalogue, so there may be a space where we get to do that, but most of it's going to be taken up with the Hysteria album. So we do that, and then that only leaves us kind of half an hour or so.
Okay.
And so we got to really cram it in there. So probably not. We may actually do it in the States, you know, the odd song here and there, and just may change it up and have a space where we do a, you know, a classic song or even a dark track, you know, a deep cut or whatever, you know. So, yeah, it depends. We haven't really figured that one out yet. We know kind of what songs we're going to be playing for the next 6 months, and we know we're going to be doing an hour of Hysteria when we get down there. But for the other half hour, we haven't figured that one out yet.
Okay. Well, I mean, you are noted for your musicianship, it must be said, and you do partner with the excellent Robert DeLeo in Delta Deep. Now, that's a band that I don't think gets anywhere near enough credit for what you guys are doing there. So do you think that Delta Deep you'll become more involved in that as the years progress, or is it just something that you're doing on the side?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm actually, we started the second album, the studio album, actually already recording it. Debbie Blackwell Cook's with me, and you know, I just done a G3 tour with Joe Satriani and John Petrucci, and
nice.
You know, we all done a set each, and then the 3 of us would get up together and jam for half an hour. So I actually brought Debbie Blackwell Cook, Forrest Robinson from Delta Deep out. Robert had to do STP stuff, so he couldn't make it, but we brought this amazing bass player out, Craig Martini, who played with Paul Gilbert, and just incredible, great singer and amazing bass player. So we actually done a Delta Deep set, and Debbie Blackwell Cook was singing. Then we done the jam thing with Satriani and Petrucci, and
nice.
Debbie would sing on that as well. And literally every single night, she would get a standing ovation. So, which was interesting. You know, you're on a guitar tour, and it's the lead singer is actually getting a standing ovation every single night. So that was great. So it made me think we're definitely doing something right. So yeah, Robert will be playing on the newer stuff. I've got about 7 or 8 songs on the go, and they're all at various stages. And we're pushing it even further in the same envelope. You know, it started as a blues kind of thing, and funk and soul and rock. And now we got this one song. It's like heavy metal gospel, if you can imagine that. It's like hard rock gospel. It's kind of got all the elements of. So we're just pushing the boat out even further.
Great.
So I love that. And, it's wonderful.
Well, I'm a big fan of a genre that virtually nobody mentions these days, but funk metal. So bands like Living Colour and 24/7 Spies, and I could hear a lot of what you guys are doing there and what those guys are doing with their music as well. So being a bass player, and I'm also a guitarist, but primarily my stage instrument's a bass. I love the way that you guys have incorporated so much cool blues. I can hear jazz. I can even hear ragtime, and that was the other thing I could hear. Correct me if I'm wrong here. Now, I might have taken this subconsciously from your biography when I read that, but Def Leppard always had a bit of a, I don't know whether you call it ragtime, but you always had a really good understanding of the intrinsic nature of the blues through your music.
Absolutely. I mean, the thing, and don't forget, we learned most of our stuff from Mutt Lange. He's like the ultimate musical encyclopedia. I mean, he really taught me how to play guitar properly.
Yeah.
You know, I'd come in and I was playing a certain way, and he'd go, "Hey, try this," and singing. You know, he really taught us all how to sing. And everyone goes, "Wow, you kind of sound like you and Joe sound the same." And it's like, well, actually, we both sound like Mutt. And then Brian Adams ends up sounding like Mutt. And then all these other people who work with him, he kind of has this thing. And all the AC/DC stuff, you know, you hear him singing on those records, and you hear him singing on our albums, obviously. So he made such a huge impact on our, as a musical influence. And he's so humble. It's just incredible, actually, what he did. And so we owe a lot to Mutt, and it's really great. So he kind of introduced us to a lot of stuff, like even rhythmically, what works rhythmically, and what works guitar-wise, and how you can apply this to this without messing the melody up or the groove. And it always comes back to melody and groove. And I still apply that. You know, I just produced the new Tesla album that comes out in September.
Right.
And I just applied everything that Mutt Lange taught me, basically, and it always comes back down to that. It was groove, melody. You can't stray too far off of that. So, so that's where all of that comes from, really.
Yeah, okay, it's good to be able to get that background on it, actually, because it always felt like you got a fairly straight-ahead beat or a rhythm and then reversed it and made it really interesting. So to the untrained ear, it might come across as, I wouldn't say simplistic, but it comes across as straightforward. But if you're a musician and sit down and try to play along to a lot of your material, you realise that there's all these really interesting twists and turns that go into it, which is, as I say, as a covers musician and having played a lot of your material, including the track Women, that's another track that's got going on exactly what I'm talking about. It sounds straight ahead, but there's actually a lot of, in terms of the way that the drumming, particularly the drumming and the percussion, has been laid across the rhythmic nature against the guitars. Man, you can tell that tens of, I don't know, I don't want to be too broad on my statement.
You're absolutely right. And it's rare that people even pick up on that. And you're absolutely right. I'd done a thing with Mutt, actually, about 5 years ago. He was working with a Swedish artist, and we were doing what sounded really simplistic, and the melodies and everything. What he was having me play on the guitar, first off, I couldn't play it, first off. I'm trying to, he's going, "Oh, well, try this one." I'm doing it. He can play it straight off the bat, which is incredible. And then I finally got it, and it sounds so simple, or this track does, but some of the guitar parts and that were really complicated. And that's another thing. And what that really does is it makes it interesting. It just makes it sound different to other things, and without getting too over the top with that kind of stuff, and kind of losing the melody and the groove. He actually is able to keep both, and that's it's pretty genius kind of thing to do. So it's something he always does. It's amazing.
Wicked.
Excuse me, Andrew. Sorry, Andrew. It's just a reminder. Thank you.
No worries. Well, Phil, I better let you go then. It's been awesome to have a chat. I mean, I've been listening to your stuff since I first picked up Adrenalize back in the day. So, and as I say, Slang, thank you so much for writing Slang, and thank you so much for saying so many positive things about Slang as well, because it actually, it's a record that is close to my heart, to be frank with you. So good luck on the tour. Good luck with the rest of your career, and thanks so much.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. That was great.
You are listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast. My name is Andrew Mackay-Smith, and that was my conversation with Def Leppard's guitarist, Phil Collin. Thanks so much for listening.